Hey, welcome back. Stop complaining and work harder. This is Carey Davis with a Face for Radio right here in the Work Harder Studios. And we are here to talk about management and supervision and leadership for supervisors, specifically targeted at government supervisors, one of the toughest jobs in the world. Happy to have you. Again, my name is Carey Davis, 33 years in the United States government, working 27 of those years in federal law enforcement with the INS and Customs and Border Protection, and then 25 and another 6 years doing hazardous materials investigations for the Department of Transportation. 25 of those years I was a manager at all levels, from first line supervisor all the way up to the Senior Executive Suite in Washington, D.C. So my goal in this series, as always, is to provide a little bit of my experience and hope that it can impart some help on you in your career so you don't have to learn lessons the hard way like I did, like most of my colleagues did. Again, government management training generally just is awful. It really is. It teaches everything except what you actually need to learn. You can go to school, you can get a doctorate in management. It will do you absolutely zero good in the real world. So all I can do is tell you my experience, give you my advice. If you glean something from it, great. If you don't, hey, the production values suck. This is as low budget as it gets. I'm literally sitting in a 60-year-old RV while I do this, and it is my sincerest hope that you watch all the way through. And if you get one thing out of this today, then it's been positive. So, before we get into the main topic, I want to reach back into episode 3, the previous episode, where we talked about electronic communications discipline. Probably one of the most important skills you will have to learn in today's day and age. After I did the episode, I was thinking, actually what happened was my daughter, who's an attorney, called me up and she said that in her firm there was a clerical executive who was messing with the employees, and that they were basically, in my opinion, they were sending emails that were inflammatory, hoping for an inflammatory response. And you will probably encounter people like this, and they are unpleasant. But when you encounter them, what you'll get is an email. Usually your supervisor or a group of people will be CC'd on the email, and it will be something designed to elicit a negative response from you. And I go back to the advice I gave. When you write an email, after you finish writing it, don't send it. Go have a cup of coffee, spend some time, then come back and look at it again. When you get an email that pisses you off, your first instinct is going to be to respond. Your first instinct is, F you, and I don't have to do that, and I'm not gonna, and you can kiss my behind. No. Go get that cup of coffee. Go walk around the block. Go work out. Go fishing. Come back. And be calm when you read it, and try to understand what's going on. And it could be, and it's extremely possible, that someone is truly upset and they're trying to voice their concern to you. More likely, someone is simply throwing a fish hook out there, hoping that you will take the bait and say something that you will regret later, or that they can use against you later on. A lot of people do this, and then once they've gotten you to respond 3 or 4 times, they'll file an EEO or an official complaint against you with HR because you're being aggressive to them, and you're targeting them for whatever reason. Completely untrue. They have pissed you off, but what they're going to do is they're going to take your response out of context, and you're going to lose. You're just going to lose. And something that I've actually had to counsel my employees on, people that you don't think are smarter than you, at least in the ways of bureaucracy, are much smarter than you. I assure you, they sit around with all the time in the world, and they figure out ways to be smarter than you. So don't think that you're the smartest person in the room. You're not. There's always someone, and you may have 6 doctorate degrees, you may have an IQ of 187, but you haven't been playing the bureaucracy game half as long as the person who sits in the back office and watches and knows everything that goes on in the office and was trained by someone who spent 40 years doing the same thing. And they know how to play the game. So I'm going to teach everyone who watches this, all 18 of you, this secret. It's the advice I gave my daughter. When you get the inflammatory email, when you get the fish hook, because that's what it is, they're throwing a hook out, seeing if you'll bite and respond. When this comes, your answer should be, first, take the break. Walk around the block, go have a cup of coffee, calm down. Then when you come back, your answer should be short, pleasant, and non-committal. What do you mean, Carey? What the hell does that mean? Okay. Someone sends you an email, and in that email they accuse you of not doing your job and specifically targeting a certain group of people to attack and offend and do all these horrible things to. And it's bullshit. It's all a lie. One of my favorite tactics is to simply respond, thank you. Let me back up. The first rule of emails is you don't have to respond. Again, there is no actual requirement for you to answer an email. And then 3 months down the road, when they file an EEO against you, and you're in the hearing and they say, why didn't you respond to this individual's emails? You can say, because they were inflammatory and obviously leading to this, so I'm not going to give them the benefit of my response. End of story. But if you do feel like you have to respond, or in my daughter's case where her company requires a response to emails like that, you can say, thank you. Or my personal favorite, because this is a real dick response and it works really well, noted. You're a jerk and you're doing this on purpose. Noted. Thank you. Just noted, period. End of story. Respond. You responded. You said nothing inflammatory. You've done nothing wrong. You have not violated policy, and you have not been accusatory. You've not been negative, any of that. But if you really want to be pleasant about it and have fun while doing so, and I learned this from one of my favorite bosses, they sent you this inflammatory email, and you can give them the look forward to response. I look forward to a meeting on this topic. I look forward to further discussions. I look forward to our future conversations. And just end it at that. You don't have to say anything else. You will learn that if they're truly offended, they're going to come to you at that point and say, when can we talk? Or they're going to send your response, say, let's schedule a meeting. Fantastic. Sit down at the meeting and so when you have a meeting with someone who's upset with you, and we're going to talk about this later on, you just listen to them. That's all they wanted to begin with, is to be heard. Listen to them. That's the most important thing. But more likely, because they were just throwing a fish hook out and playing a game, you'll get no response at all. You just shut it down. And fantastic, everybody wins. You walk away happy, they walk away unhappy, and who cares? It worked out. So the reason I bring this up is, we were talking about a lot of things yesterday, but sometimes you do have to respond, but your response doesn't have to address every little note. It can simply be a generic positive. Thank you. Thank you is a fantastic one. Who can be upset with you for saying thank you? Here and there, I'll recommend movies to watch, and a lot of these are things that, I had to watch for certain trainings, and there's certain lessons in all of them, but there was a movie with Kevin Costner decades ago, I think, called 13 Days, about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and great scene where the generals, Curtis LeMay, and these generals who really, they were trying to force us into a war with Russia, and they came in and they gave President Kennedy all these scenarios. We got to do this and we got to do that. We're going to have to do so. There has to be this. And Kennedy just looked at LeMay and said, thank you, and dismissed him. Thanks. I'll think about it. Do a couple things with that. One, you buy yourself time. But if you watch that movie, and it's a really entertaining movie, it's a good movie. If you watch that movie, the greatest scene is when LeMay is walking out of the Oval Office. He says, "What the hell was that?" Because you just put him on his back foot. Well, you can use this same tactic. You just, because a question is asked, whether it's verbal or electronic, whatever, doesn't mean a response is required. You can say, "Let me consider that." You can be really nice and say, "Let me think about it. I'll get back with you on that." But get back with them. Don't say, "Let me get back with you on that," and then the whole thing disappears. You have to have that conversation. "Let me get back with you. How about we talk on Thursday?" So these are just things, common practice. But the gist of this tangent was to follow up on yesterday and let you know that people are going to try to mess with you on email, and the pissed off response, especially in writing, is always the wrong response. One of these days we're going to talk about how to deal with the union. I can tell you the union chapter I dealt with, that was one of their favorite tactics. They would send an email out to all managers that had it wasn't inflammatory, but it had a sort of negative connotation or whatever. And everybody knew not to answer. But there would always be one dumbass. Always one dumbass who would say, "Well, I think this." And they'd type it in and hit enter. And the next thing I know, I had a union grievance on my desk, because this guy answered the question in a way that they figured was wrong, which was their intent to begin with. So I call it the fish hook. They throw it out. Somebody's going to bite. Once the bite happens, then the game's on and you can play. So that's that. Let's get to the main topic for today, and that's dealing with upset employees. And it's a tough topic. It's not one people like to talk about, but frankly, as a manager, particularly as a first line supervisor, this is something you have to deal with a lot. I know I did. Everything from somebody who didn't get a promotion, they'll come in and want to talk to you about that. I had one lady who decided I must have been, because I got promoted 2 weeks before, I was now her psychologist. And she came in and laid out all her problems, and boy, did she have a lot of problems. And she'd come in the office and just start unloading on me. And you know what? I decided right then and there that the best thing I could do is shut up and let this person talk. And I did, and sadly she passed away many years ago, but I hope for those moments, it gave her some comfort that someone was listening, because it struck me that she was in my office because she had no one to talk to, and no one was listening to her stories. And, she'd come in and tell me everything, and it was just heart-wrenchingly sad. But, as to be a human being, and then to me, it's also part of leadership. You gain people's respect by simply listening. And I'll say listen a lot, and I mean that. There's an art to listening. There's an art to keeping your opinion to yourself, your mouth shut, and just watch someone talk, and then use your ears. And, you learn by listening. You don't learn by talking. No one ever learned anything with their mouth open. It's an old Southern thing. The reason it's more important to listen is proven by the fact that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. So, it's a very important thing. But, everything from that to, I've had people who suffered a family loss while they were at work, and they come to me upset about that. And, again, you listen, you try to provide some comfort and be human. So this is a great thing to talk about while we're on it. Once you get promoted, you're no longer one of the guys. You're no longer one of the gang. You're one of them. You're a boss. And it's, there's moments when you can still be part of the gang, but you're not really, because you're always the boss. And there's people out there, a great number of people, who just have a certain amount of dislike for anybody that represents authority at all. And they'll tell you, I bet 90% of those people, if you ask them, they'll just tell you, "Yeah, I can't stand bosses. You're just pieces of shit." And that's fine. That's how people think. It's a natural human trait. But, so you can't be one of the boys again. You can hang out, and all that, but you got to watch you have to watch every word you say. People will take everything you say out of context, and it'll be your best friend that does it. The first union grievance I ever got was a dude that I had gone up to Massachusetts to shoot pheasants with 2 weeks before and stayed at his family's house, and then suddenly I was a supervisor and he filed a union grievance on me like it was nothing. It's the old Donnie Brasco trick. It'll be your best friend that does it, because every time you get promoted you will lose friends, whether you know it or not, because they go from being your friend and your colleague to your employee, and you go from being their friend and colleague to one of them, that manager. So the point of that is they're going to vent their frustrations on you, but they see you as something else. And sometimes they don't see the boss as human, they see you as the boss. And I don't know a better way to describe that. You're not their friend, you're their boss. Or they'll come to you and suddenly start trying to polish your boots because you're the boss. And you're like, you don't have to do this, we're buddies, we've been hanging out, our wives are friends, whatever. And suddenly they act differently towards you. So, they're going to come to you with things you never wanted to hear or know about people. And two, when they get upset, they're going to take it out on you. So the third type of upset employee is the one that's pissed off at the agency or the job. And you represent the agency and the job. And so they're going to come to you and they're going to unload on you. And sometimes that just means a really heartfelt talk. And other times they're going to yell and scream like you're the biggest jerk that was ever born. And your job is to stand there and take it and listen to them. You have to listen hard because people get really emotional. Really emotional. And if they start talking about self-harm or worse, God forbid, or hinting that there's substance abuse or any of these other things that may be affecting them, as a government manager, it's your duty first to refer them to EAP. Get them the help they need, and those resources are there through the Employee Assistance Program. And this is a government-wide thing, so don't tell me your agency doesn't have it unless you're in the service, and then I know there's networks for that sort of thing as well. But if you're a civil servant, EAP is available to all your employees. And so one of the best things I learned when I was coming up is the INS, or it may have been DOJ, I don't know, they actually had business cards with the phone number and contact for EAP for the office on it. And I kept those business cards in my pocket, and when I would have a issue like this, I just pull a business card out of mine and I would say, you really need to call these people. I think they're here to help you. Beyond that, the best thing you can do is just listen. Just listen. Hear them out. You don't have to answer them. You don't have to negotiate with them or bargain with them. You just have to hear them. And sometimes you say, what can I say? Life sucks. Sometimes you come to work, the best things I ever heard, my old boss told me, sometimes you come to work and you get told to do things you don't want to do. That's how it is. Some people get really upset about that. So watch your response, because it may just inflame their emotions. Again, you don't have to give a response. Just listen. Listen to what they say. And then you'll have those people who are so emotionally distraught, and it may not even be about you. They will come to you and literally lose their mind screaming. I've had this happen on a number of occasions. Absolute pandemonium, screaming and yelling. Stand there. Watch the situation develop. Don't try to move them into an isolated room. If they're doing it in public, just stand there and let them scream. If they cuss you out, let them do it. Who cares? One thing I heard, some people, especially larger men, when you're a supervisor, you seem intimidating. Or if you have a habit of being a close talker or someone who leans in to hear this kind of thing, put your hands in your pockets or behind your back. And people say, why would you do that? That's because the first thing this person who's screaming at you is going to do when the complaints start coming, because it may not be that person's complaint, but the people who watched it happen are going to go into your boss or HR or internal affairs, whoever. They're going to go to them and describe the situation. And then when they put the person who was yelling at you on, in the hot seat and start asking them what went on, they're going to say, well, I was really pissed off about this, but Carey was leaning towards me and it looked like he was going to hit me. I felt like he was going to hit me. He was being aggressive. This will happen. I promise you. So if you put your hands in your pocket or behind your back when you get questioned, oh no, my hands were crossed behind my back during the entire exchange. My hands were in my pockets during the entire exchange. There's no way I could have hit that person. This will save you. I promise you. Because a person's perception becomes reality when they're complaining about you, especially an employee. And, these are things, one of the biggest issues, and we haven't discussed this yet, but we will, self-preservation. Things you need to have. You got to have professional, if you're going to be a supervisor, get professional liability insurance. Never, ever, ever go into a room alone with a person of the opposite sex. Ever. Don't do it. Bring a witness. If you have a meeting with the union, have a witness. All these things where people can bend the words you say or change the context, do anything. Have a witness. Protect yourself. Always be thinking that you got to protect yourself, because like I said, you're not one of them anymore. You're a manager. You're different. And it will be your best friend that does it. But so you've got someone who's screaming at you. Your hands are behind your back. You're listening. The things they are saying are getting under your skin and pissing you off. And they're saying things maybe about people and you know that the things they're saying are a lie. Don't call them a liar. Let them get it out of their system. And once they've gotten it out of their system, say, would you like to sit down? Would you like a drink of water? Something completely unrelated, minimal, non-aggressive, that will turn the corner. That's what you're doing, is turning the corner. And I hope someday some psychologist is watching this, or behaviorist, or someone who's smarter than me, which is easy to do, watches, tells me, Carey, you're wrong, you should never do that. Okay, fine, come on the show and tell me a better way. But something non-aggressive that will turn the corner, that'll change the direction of the conversation. So you say, they're bah, 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 bah. And once they've gotten it out of their system, it's, hey, would you like to sit down? Why don't we have a seat and discuss this some more? Things will change. There's an art to talking to other human beings, whether they're happy or not. So that's my best advice on that subject. And what I'd like to do, as time goes on, we have more of these episodes, we can get more in depth and have more regular conversations about specifics and how these things work. But I just wanted to bring up, you're going to have people get upset with you and start screaming and yelling at you, whether it's the public or your employees or employees' family members. It happens. Ears open, mouth closed. Smartest move you can make. Look people in the eyes. Ears open, mouth closed. All right, and with that, let's go into bullshit bingo. That's how I like to close out the day. And this episode's phrase is something I've been seeing on television a lot. It came from government employees saying it, but the news media has picked it up and uses it constantly now, and it amazes me. And that phrase is hunker down. I don't get this at all. So I am an admitted proud fan of the University of Georgia football. I love the Georgia Bulldogs. I grew up a Georgia Bulldog, watched them my whole life. I follow them. And starting in the 80s, they had a cheer, hunker down, hairy dogs. Only time I've ever used the term hunker down in my life was saying hunker down, hairy dogs during Georgia football University of Georgia football, right? But in the last few years, and maybe it's been around longer than that, I don't know, but it's just been the last few years, the news presenter, if you want to call them that, get on TV and say, the politician determined that we should hunker down for... Who the hell uses the word hunker down? Is that something you say to your kids? Go hunker down in your room. Think about this. Is this something you use in everyday speech? Hunker down. Come on. Nobody hunkers. I'll give you $1. I'll give you $1 right now if you ever used hunker in any situation outside of University of Georgia football game. So, anyways, that's how we'll end it. Hey, look, email me. The address is below, ctd@whiskeyandguns.com. Give me suggestions. Let me know if you want to be on the show. I haven't started doing the interviews yet. Once we do, it'll lengthen the show a little bit, but it's going to be a great time. We're going to have some good people on. I've already spoken to some of my former colleagues and friends out there, and we're going to get these folks on, do a quick Zoom interview, have them tell about their biggest management challenge, and I'm certain everyone that watches will learn something and get something truly helpful out of it. So, I'm Carey Davis. Stop complaining. Work harder. From the Work Harder Studios. Have a great day.